We're neighbours. That's what we're supposed to do, is help each other. I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine. All the way.
I suspect she's lonely, as am I.
Testing, 1, 2.
I'm very grateful for you being here for my mother.
And she's really been there for me.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that you were okay to be spending a lot of time with my mother.
Helen, are you all right?
I've been hurting all my life, Elsie, to be honest.
What an experience that film is.
It's good on the big screen.
It's good on the big screen. So tell me a little bit about how you arrived at making the film with Paul. You've collaborated a couple of times before, right?
Yes. So Paul and I have made, before this film, we made a 1-hour film for BBC called Murder for Being Different. We did a 6-part ITV series called A Confession, and then I stepped in to finish the end of a feature film called Bull, which is his feature film before this. And then this was our first feature for cinema together. I got sent this script years ago, 2020, maybe. It was the first time I read it. And he sent me 2 scripts. He sent me this script and he sent me Bull. And I was like, Bull is really violent, but I want to do, it was called Magpie at the time. I want to do Magpie. And it was just that it took a while to get finance. So sort of we shot it in 2024, so 4 years later.
Yeah, and I guess, and Paul does the TV show, then a TV to pay the rent, and then a movie to fulfill artistic, creative
Yeah, I mean, he's a workaholic,
impulses.
so he just works all the time on whatever he can, as you know.
Yeah.
If you don't know, Chris shot his first ever film, London to Brighton.
Yeah, well, I was very
various
fortunate
others.
to shoot Paul's first film, and it was my first film too, and we didn't know what we were doing. But it was 16mm, a lot like Dragonfly, so we have some common ground in the fun of the chaos of the creative chaos of Paul Andrew Williams. So it's a real character study. It's like super intense, and it comes from the bond that the audiences have with those characters. It's easy to do with Brenda and Andrea, but how did you work with Sabre?
Yeah, Dixie, she just won the best dog in show or whatever at the Fidos, they're called, the Oscars for dogs. Sabre was the most difficult cast member.
Okay.
And if you may notice she's doing a lot of eating. She basically just follows peanut butter and chicken around. So we lace the streets with chicken breasts, and everything that she touches is covered in peanut butter, and that's basically how you deal with Dixie.
Yeah.
I loved her, but she was not a scary beast, but she is in the script.
Yeah, was she scary when you took the peanut butter away?
Never scary. She was
Right.
so affectionate. And just and one of the rushes, the problem with the rushes was she was always wagging her tail.
Okay.
It was really hard to make her not look really super friendly. And also she didn't sit still. So every time you see her sitting still, that's every single frame of her sitting still. There is no handle on the edit.
Yeah, that's it. 48 frames a second.
That's what you get.
Motionless dog. Excellent, looking mean. I guess, so visually, it's a really interesting character arc where you start the film kind of objectively observing the characters, and you kind of fall into the rhythm of their lives, and then it kind of ramps up into sort of terrifying subjectivity. What kind of conversations did you and Paul have about that working methodology?
Yeah, I think it's funny now. I had to watch it again, kind of to remind myself what we were doing. I mean, a lot of the tension and sort of misdirection and trying to work out is Colleen a safe person? Is she going to rob her? Is she going to is the dog safe? All of that tension is kind of led by the acting, I think, at the beginning. The camera is just very static. I mean, it's a bit handheld for Colleen and it's quite still for Elsie, but in general, the actors lead that. But I think it's still there. There's this underlying tension, and then when you sort of really trying to push it, you start the zooms come in, and then I think once you once the bins on the lawn come out, that's when we sort of flip to, this is maybe twisting into like the horror genre or something. So yeah, it was more like camera movement. The zooms, obviously, they're quite, you know, unsubtle. I don't know what the word is, but like they're intentional, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they're like almost a chapter heading level of psychosis in a way. They ramp the tension.
And just the tracks and the slides. I mean, there's very, very tiny locations. So putting any kind of movement in there was, you know, you're going to get maybe a 3-foot slider in front of Brenda on that chair, and then you can just about fit a track in the hallway.
Yeah.
That's basically like your maximum movement.
And I think actually, yeah, it's a kind of, so Paul's third film was Cherry Tree Lane, that is like another very intense, violent experience. There's sort of a trend to the films that he makes on 16. But it was very much a kind of a bottle movie where you're locked in one location. And Dragonfly is similar in a way in that you've got a prison cell bungalow for Elsie and a prison cell bungalow for Colleen. How did you go about, I guess, telling that level of the story, but also keeping yourself sane and working in the same place day after day and varying things for your own sanity?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was the hardest part of the job, was trying to keep track in my mind of where we were in the story, because we had a week of just Brenda on her own before Angie arrived. So it was any scenes where she's on her own or any scenes where she's got other carers. So that was basically our first week, which was incredibly sunny. And then Andrea turns up and it's cloudy and you're like, oh, nightmare. But yeah, so it was quite hard for me to sort of keep track, you know, when you're shooting in the same living room with the same two people drinking tea, like, where are we? How has that relationship grown? Are they just getting to know each other? Are they in their sort of that honeymoon period of their blossoming friendship? Mm-hmm. Has John come yet? I mean, once John's come, it's a different film, I think. Yeah. But I found it quite difficult. And I guess I was just thinking, I mean, Paul, that's where Paul's like real strength is. Like, he is so good on story and he knows exactly what the characters are doing all the time. And for me, I was more like, what time of day is it? What's before and after this? And like, how can I, are we mirroring what we did before because we're trying to deliberately be like, it's the same day after day mundanity of their lives? Or are we trying to suggest something with this shot? So it was more for me like a day-to-day, scene-by-scene decision. I didn't have like a master plan in that sense.
Yeah, and I guess I probably already know the answer to this, but in terms of like sequence meetings and storyboarding and that kind of thing, how there was like 6 months of doing that beforehand?
There was almost nothing.
Yeah.
So I read the script a long time ago, and I'm good pals with Paul, and I worked with him on Bull. But with Bull, I literally just stepped in with no prep to finish off, so that was not a creative sort of prep experience. And with Dragonfly, pretty much all my soft, unpaid prep leading up to it was finding nannies in Yorkshire and finding camera crew who wants to give up their entire August summer holidays for very little money, who've worked on film before. So like, I spent hours and hours and hours on the phone on those two tasks, very little in like creative meetings. And obviously we were looking for the bungalows for quite a while, but we did that like in April and we filmed in August, April, May. But even up till the end, up to like July, we didn't know which bungalows we were going for. It was really hard to find this location because we needed 2 bungalows next door to each other with the street that was okay with it and with 2 neighbours who were happy to leave. So sometimes we would find the perfect bungalow, but the next door neighbour wouldn't have it. And that was kind of the situation in this street, which we loved, and everybody said no. And then sort of a couple of months later, somebody came back, and then we sort of persuaded the neighbours, and it worked out quite well. But the script is that they've got the front doors facing the lawn, so a lot of the script was about them being able to see each other all the time. So for Paul, it was quite hard to rewrite his experience that the doors are on the side. I know it seems like it doesn't make a big difference, but actually in terms of like what they do and don't see of each other's lives is quite essential to the film. And so with the script changing, with the location changing those beats, and like the carers coming and going, it did make, like we had to sort of really rethink the whole like placement of the scenes. But yeah, in terms of our prep together, I travelled to Yorkshire on the Monday, so we had 9 working days, and then we started shooting Monday the 2 weeks later. So my prep was like snatches of Paul's attention. And really like, I mean, I'm quite thorough. I like to do sort of a page turn and stuff, and that's not who Paul is. He's very like immediate and spontaneous. And, you know, and also what he said to me halfway through prep, which was quite a good note to me, because I was going, Paul, I really need to lock you down about this and this, and I really need to know this and this. And he was just like, Ness, I just need to stay relaxed. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like really stressed. And he's like, no, I just need to stay relaxed, because he needs to be in a creative space where he can be relaxed and responsive and having a good time. And I think that was so important for us, because it was a really tough film. It was a hard schedule. It was very low budget, very small team. And we're like 2 big, great actors. And, you know, they're not getting paid their normal rate to come to a suburb of Leeds. You know, they're doing it because they like the film. And so for them to be their best and for him to give his best to them, you had to have a level of like enjoyment and relaxation and creativity that was fun. He doesn't need me being like, I need this, 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 this. So it was quite a good note. And I mean, because I know him and I know what he does and doesn't like, I didn't need like to have lots of style meetings with him in that sense. I just sort of wanted to know, like, are there days where we think we can have a steady cam? Like the things that I needed, like, to book in especially.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, you know, what exposure do you want the shadows to be? Like, he's not interested in that. And, you know, we had a couple of stills that were used as references, and that was kind of it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can go and make a film with any director with 9 days prep. But because we knew each other, I knew that it was possible.
Yeah, it's like actually 9 days isn't enough for any of those conversations. So it's better that you just accept that none of those conversations have occurred, and you're just gonna like leap into the
I mean,
process.
sometimes we would like go to the bungalow and they'd be painting a wall and be like, "What do you think of this colour?" And we're like, "Oh, well," you know. There was a lot of like, "What do you think of this prop?" And like there was sort of we were doing like lots of sort of doing business rather than thinking and creating, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, I guess I don't think I got past page 10 on a page turn with Paul. And we had like 6 months of meetings, like we'd meet once a week, and they'd be like, the money's not quite in yet, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, I think it's sort of part of his creative process is that he can't be pinned down in that level of logistics.
No,
So,
I mean, he finds it so boring.
Yeah.
If you're saying like, what scene do you want to start with tomorrow? Because if we do this scene first, then maybe that person will have this much. He's just like, I just don't care. Just tell me what to do. And I'm like, okay, fine. You know, like that is not where he wants to be, his head to be. And I've lost my train of thought. What did you say?
About I was saying the 10 days, didn't get past 10 pages with him.
Yeah.
But I think that is just, his nature.
Yeah. But also, what I was going to say is he knows exactly what is happening. Like, I may not be able to extract it out of him in a sort of 10-hour meeting, but he knows. So if you ever have a question, like, he'll know the answer. He's not like, oh, I have no idea, I haven't thought about it. Like, he'll know exactly. So you just have to sort of get those informations in snippets, or, you know, he'd rehearse the scene with them, and a lot of this is, I mean, ad-libbed is probably an exaggeration, but, I mean, it is ad-libbed. Like, it's not verbatim from the script. Like, they're improvising together, and, like, they wouldn't want to over-rehearse it because they didn't want to give each other clues about what they were going to do. So, and because they come from this, like, Mike Leigh background, a lot of it was almost unrehearsed. So my role is then to sort of be an observer and respond in the same way that he's responding. So you sort of all become, like, in this, like, live process.
Yeah, so it's like Elsie and Colleen, they're characters that have been pulled out of the script by Andrea and Brenda, and you're almost playing the casual third-person observer in the room to whatever those characters get up to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so vital. So, like, it's very much of the moment. So the camera's responding when the characters are responding to each other.
And also the sort of benefit of having such a tight schedule is that there isn't, like, you can't do 5 takes, you know. And also because Andrea's very, like, intensely in her mind. I mean, method is maybe, it's kind of a cliche exaggeration of what she is, but she's so sort of in the moment that you know, you're going to get the best thing from her take 1 or take 2, and then that's kind of it. So I just had to always be ready to respond to that. And that first time when she puts the microwave meal in the kitchen, and the makeup scene was my first day with Andrea. And with the makeup scene, it was, you got one roll of film, and we're not going to rehearse it, and I'm not going to tell you what order I'm doing it in. It's on a Zoom. The director's not in the room. So it's me, the focus puller, and the boom operator, and it's just like, go. So that was like, oh God, okay, nice to meet you, let's go. You know, so really like,
and
you
you're
just
not,
really
and you're not going to
respond
wind back the makeup. It's going to be a linear process. So you're like, okay.
Start to finish.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we changed the role for the Zoom shot at the end. But that was it. And Paul he was just like, Nessa, just go do it. I'm going to be out of the room. And it, you know, it was hard for me, because I think if I was in a situation where I really knew the actor better, like if maybe it had been the week after, I would have worked out if it was appropriate or not appropriate to like whisper to my focus puller, the lipstick, or whatever, you know what I mean? But I didn't feel necessarily, I didn't want to interrupt her flow automatically.
On hour 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And so let's dive a little bit into the text at 16mm. So you've done a lot of work in like the land of big TV lately, and what was the technological and I guess like process transition for you between a big TV world of many monitors and multiple cameras to something more directly intense on celluloid?
It was difficult. I mean, in lots of ways, the single camera narrative with the director is not that different. I mean, I've done a lot of that before, and I've worked with Paul in that sort of way before. So storytelling-wise, it was fine, but I think I probably haven't done film on narrative for more than 10 years before this. I'd done like fashion films and, you know, a bit of Bolex or Super 8 for fun, like as part of a mixed media like fashion commercial or something, but I hadn't done 16 or 35 for so long in narrative. And I had this sort of rose-tinted memory of like, it'll be amazing. Like I loved it when I was at film school and it'll be so great. And actually like, it's really hard. You know, the exposure is kind of actually fine because there's great stock and once you've got the hang of it, it's no big deal. But it was more like operating with your eye against the eyepiece all the time when you're so used to being able to like take your eye off and look ahead and all of that. And especially in the sun, you know, I'd be operate like that scene where John comes to like pet Sabre. It's like so sunny. And I remember like, I was operating and I had the shot with Sabre and then we cut and then Andrea asked me something. So I looked up, spoke to her, and then it was like, okay, turn over. And then I put my eyepiece back and like my eye had not resolved back to the darkness with like however many NDs I had in the front of the lens.
1.8
I was like, my ground glass is like this big. There's so much dark glass in the front of the camera. I can't see what I'm doing. Is, you know, that kind of thing where I was like, so then, you know, the next take, I'm like, okay, you could talk to me, but hold on, I just can't, like, you know, I've got my cap on and I've got my eyes closed. I'm like, okay, like, just tell me, and I don't want to, like, look at you until we're going, because, you know, your eyes take so long to adjust. So that was hard. And also being the person on set responsible for, you're the only person who knows what it's going to look like, or has any idea what it's going to look like, because even the video tap monitors aren't very good. Or, you know, they're fine, but they're an approximation. Yeah. And, you know, in TV, everyone has huge monitors. All the makeup artists have Q-Take on iPads, and they're all wandering around. No one bothers me because they're all like, they can see exactly what's in frame. Whereas on this, especially the night interiors or exteriors, you know, everyone would say, oh, Ness, you know, was this in shot? Was this prop in shot? Was the boom in shot? Was that costume okay? How was the makeup? Like, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, all I'm doing is really, really, like, trying to click in with what Angie and Brenda are doing on a personal level, and also, like, just checking my framing all the time, like, that I'm not catching my light. You know, the bungalows are so tiny, so maybe I'd have, like, a Titan tube at the top ceiling, and my one thin light, it was still, like, too low in frame to, you know,
always in shot, or so eyebrow
all I'm doing
for
is
a
trying to
lens
keep
flare.
the C stand out, keep the Titan out, and try and, like, work out, and then, you know, trying to also keep an eye on focus, because, but it's, you know, so that for me was the hardest, just like, it was so intense as a, you know, from when they call turnover to when they call cut, like, you know, you're sort of like in this like fighting zone, which I was not expecting. Like that really like surprised me. I sort of went into this being like, it's going to be so nice. Like I love film and blah, blah, blah. And actually like, it was almost like going sort of, not a marathon's the wrong word, but you know, you're like going into the ring every day just to sort of perform in a, you know, physically. So that was a shock.
And did you test the process beforehand? What was the technicalities?
Paul was really keen to do Super 16, having done a few films like that. And obviously I was like, yeah, great, fine. But it was really low budget, so we didn't know if we could afford it. And we tested some stocks against the Alexa 35 with like all the different looks. I just did like, went through all the different looks and did the most extreme and the least extreme and a few different filters and blah, blah, blah. And then we projected them on site in 4K. Me, Paul, the two producers, Dom and Marilena. And we were just like, well, there's no question. Like 16 is what we all wanted, and it was so different to
so
digital.
a unique way of
just completely
responding
different,
to the
like,
exposure curve.
Yeah, and it felt really right for the film and for the feel of, especially for like Elsie's world, and because Colleen becomes part of Elsie's world, it just felt right. So yeah, that was like, we had a day of testing for that.
And I guess, and it leans colour palette wise, it sort of leans into Elsie's house hasn't been modernised and updated since the 80s or 70s. You know, the colour palette is muted tones. How did you work with Brenda? I'm assuming Brenda is a lot more physically capable than she appears. How did that kind of performance methodology work in terms of you and a camera?
What, in terms of her playing a sort of less able person?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that necessarily made any difference.
Or was it just you were observing?
I just followed Brenda around. I mean, she's like a really good actress, and you know, she'd be like cut, and she'd be like, I mean, backward flip is an exaggeration, but she'd be like doing a funny joke roll off the bed, and like she's very like lively and funny and entertaining. So she was like a really like fun person to have around. And I think quite a lot of actors of her age don't want to play infirm people because it's not necessarily how they want to be seen in the world. But you know, we had to like dye her hair, and you know, she's probably playing like 5-10 years older than she really is. I mean, you've seen her in Woman of Substance, and she's all like, you know, so she's quite a chameleon in that sense. I thought she was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it helps to have someone playing that way than
the other way.
Yeah. Less
I mean, I
capable.
think like I was nervous about the bathroom scenes, but she was great. And obviously you've got like, you know, you're being very respectful for modesty and you're covered up and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think she's such a pro and she's been doing it forever. Like, you know, I just put the camera at her and press record.
Yeah. I've managed to completely delete all of my questions. I deleted them on my iPad and I was like, no, it's okay, there's no phone signal, it won't link, and it just linked to my phone and deleted all my things.
Thank you, iCloud.
Yeah, thank you, iCloud. Brilliant, what a modernisation. This is excellent work. I'm just trying to think of the things we were talking about the other day on the phone. We've already done this Q&A. This is what's difficult for me. We've basically done this an hour-long Q&A on the phone.
There was
the other
more
day.
gossiping involved.
There was a lot of gossiping involved. So one of the things that was interesting about London to Brighton is when I first worked with Paul was the difference in the cast members and the different experience levels and all that sort of stuff. How did you find working with? Obviously, Andrea and Brenda are hugely, and Jason are hugely experienced. How were the peripheral cast? Do you find, did they have rehearsal periods, or was it all just run and gun?
No, everything was just turn up on the day and you get 20 minutes, you know. Lolly, who's the first carer, has been in probably like a small part in every film I've done with Paul. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to sort of come back and be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, she has always a tiny scene. And David, who's one of the policemen. But yeah, I mean, there's just no room. I mean, it's so lean, the filming process. Like, it was literally just come in, get your costume on the day, no fittings beforehand, probably, and then, like, rehearse for 10 minutes or whatever.
And away you go.
Away you go. Yeah, I mean, there's not that many supporting casts. I guess there's the carers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Sandra, who plays the carer who has the altercation with Colleen,
Yeah.
she'd worked with Paul before.
Okay.
Like Paul, you know, I think it's a smart thing to do if you've got not much rehearsal time to get as many people you know as possible. And he'd worked with Jason before as well. So, you know, I just trust Paul to do what I mean, he's very good at getting actors to do good acting.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just trust him to do that.
Yeah, and then you quietly observe, and
Yeah.
you can't go far wrong. Did you have to amend your lighting package compared to your usual?
Yeah,
your
I actually
usual
looked
stuff?
at it today because I was like, oh, I must remember what we did. I mean, honestly, I think practically everything is done with 2 or 3 lights. We had like an Evoke 24B outside on the lawn to try and get some shape on the wall of Elsie's. And then inside is just bounce all flags. And a starer would occasionally pop up if it was a darker scene. And then when we're in the kitchen, we usually have something, you know, one in the kitchen window, maybe one through the doorway or one through the bathroom window, depending on which, like, and a lot of just natural light. And, you know, using the sort of big LED fixtures to just make a continuous, you know, as consistent light as possible, augmenting the natural light and just getting it into the room. Very lean, like, package. And I think sometimes when I bring in extra lights, I will just end up hating them and getting rid of them.
Yeah.
There's also like not enough room. Like every time we change the camera position, we'd have to like move an armchair, move the sofa, move the cabinet, like.
And then if you want to bring another light in, it's like move the coffee table. Move
Yeah,
the
I mean it
dresser.
was like Tetris. So every time you did anything, 4 other pieces of kit or furniture would have to move. So as little lighting as possible is the better.
Yeah, I didn't mention this the other day, but in London's Brighton, we filmed in a house in Hackney that was owned by Annabelle, and Annabelle owned 5 Rottweilers, and she reminded me, and she was not on camera, but she is basically Colleen, fairly terrifying, 5 fairly terrifying
cool.
Rottweilers.
If she was the inspiration.
Yeah, that lived on her bed. The whole house smelt of Rottweiler. There was everywhere you looked, there was a Rottweiler in the cupboard or whatever. I was like, okay, yeah, living the Rottweiler dream. Let me put it out to the audience. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Oh, there we go. There's one straight away.
Hi Ness, hi Chris. Really enjoyed the film. It's 3 short questions together. Sorry if you said this. How long was the shoot? And like, what was your filming ratio? And I forgot what the third one was. Oh no, the budget. Like, just wanted to work out how many rolls a day you were doing for that budget.
Yes, I should have looked that up today. Because Chris asked me on Friday and I forgot to look it up. I don't know is the answer. We filmed for 21 days. It was supposed to be 20. Andrea was sick on her first shooting day, which meant that she actually missed like 2 or 3 days of costume fittings and all that other stuff. And like, she wanted to like come and be in the bungalow and meet Dixie and all these things. We actually, the 3 days prep we thought we had with Andrea, we didn't have. So she came on the Monday that she was supposed to shoot to do all her costume stuff, and then we started. So we got 1 extra day, so 21 days in total. And the budget was 1.2 million. And I don't know what the ratio was. I feel like it was like 10 to 1, and then maybe we went over a bit. I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, 10 to 1. Yeah, sounds incredibly lean, considering that's most directors just don't cut anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Paul was good at that. Like, he was paying for the stock, so he was very good at it.
He's got a vested interest in only a few feet.
Yeah, I mean, he really pushed the 16, and he put the money forward to do that. So, and he just knew what Brenda and Andrea was so good on, like, takes 1s and 2s. So we really rarely did more than that. And it's not a huge coverage kind of film. Like, you know, if it's a really long dialogue scene, you get a 2-shot and 2 shots, 1 on each of them. But often it would be like 1 or 2 shots in the scene.
Yeah. Was it only ever a single camera? Did you ever have
We had 2 cameras on the day of the police taking the dog.
Okay.
And that was Stephen Gardner, and he went and shot those nice shots of like the train and like the very few GVs that get used quite often of him on that day.
Okay.
So it was like, what's funny is that you have this mentality of like, oh, I'll just pop out and do an establisher while they're getting changed. Like they've got a costume change for 15 minutes. I'll just pop out and get some nice GVs of the street. It's like, absolutely not. There's like, to get the camera out would take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there's like the Jenny's there, or the prop truck, or like the sound man is in the
Yeah, or
garden.
the
sound
flowers
man's in
aren't
the
dressed in because it's still in from a previous scene or whatever.
I mean, the lawn continuity was a total nightmare.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have that many vehicles, but we only had those bungalows. So like, they were all in the drives if we were inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then the few times we were outside, they're like round the corner for like, they're allowed to be there for like an hour or two. And then, it was like not only moving pieces of furniture and track and dolly, but you're also moving all the vans around people's houses when they're kind enough to let you use their driveways.
Yeah, and then also try and make shoot a film in between the van
We also
driving.
had an exciting racist come to visit us with a like gardening shears to shout at us on the first day, and then he got arrested and punched a police officer, and then came back on like the next week to complain. So we also had to deal with like real people screaming at us.
And what was he complaining about?
Well, I mean, I'm
Treatment of the
I'm
dog?
laughing about it because it was awful, but it was actually during the Southport riots, and he was complaining because he was trying to like chop the hedges, and we asked him to be quiet, so he came to shout at us. Then he just went into full racist mode, and then we called the police because he actually had like shears, like weapons, although he wasn't. I mean, he was a gardener. Anyway, then the police turned up, and then he punched the policeman, and that's why he got arrested.
Yeah.
Not for shouting at us, but for punching a policeman. And then he came back a week later to get angry with us that he'd lost his job and all his work, being the gardener of that street.
Chop the
We'd
tops
ruined
of the
his-
flowers.
Yeah, and ruined the lawn. So there was also like various unforeseen,
Adventures.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Paul.
and like in
Williams.
the city centre as well, sort of various. It's not that easy because all those people in the town are real people.
Yeah.
So you have to sort of deal with real people and get permissions for everybody who's in the shot. You know what I mean? Like all that thing just takes a bit longer than.
Yeah, and like the market area with the pawnbrokers,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
So for those of you that aren't aware of it, the pawnbroker is Paul Andrew Williams, the director, who always finds a way to appear in his. I don't think this one was intentional.
Not intentional.
Not
but
intentional.
It ended up again on the day. It's like someone go buy Paul a shirt because he's got to do this acting.
Yeah,
And he had to like go and get his beard shaved and everything. So
beard shave,
another
haircut.
like hour of
Yeah.
waiting around. Yeah, fun and games.
Fun and games. An hour that nobody has. Any more questions? Let's go to that edge first.
Hiya. I just wanted to ask about the kind of, you were saying that you didn't do like tons of kind of like prep, like creative prep during the kind of like your pre-production process. How, like what did, like how did it make you feel? And also like what did you kind of do for yourself, if anything, to kind of help kind of
Yeah,
with
I
that
mean,
process?
I don't want to feel like I sound really glib when I say this. I mean, at the time, my baby was 9 months old. So I was sort of doing childcare, trying to find somewhere. I had like penciled nannies across Yorkshire because I didn't know where we were going to be filming. So it was like, can you do these days? I don't know if they're these days. I don't know where we're going to be filming. Can you drive? I'm not sure where we're going to be yet. And I had like various, so there was a lot of like, that was kind of where my energy was spent, which was obviously not creative. And this is kind of why I say I wouldn't do it for everybody, because I wouldn't put myself in that situation where I had to like move a 9-month-old baby to a suburb of Leeds and film something for 4 weeks with almost no prep, because with the director I didn't know, because you're really gonna shoot yourself in the foot if it goes wrong. Like it's just too impossible. But because I love Paul and know Paul and have worked with him quite a lot, and because I'm really clear on what he does and doesn't like, he's very straightforward and forthright, and he will just say if he hates something that I'm doing. And so it's quite a good, honest working relationship. So I didn't really do anything for myself, if I'm honest. Like I just made sure that I had the crew in place that I trusted and liked, and I spent a lot of time looking for them and getting references for them from other friends and DPs. I knew the script really well because I'd read it and I'd been sort of thinking about it for years. And he did give me like maybe 20 images of films that he liked. I gave him 20 images of stuff that I liked. We kind of like, we talked about that a bit. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of it. I mean, it's interesting because the film is quite different to the script. Even though like the structure is the same, the script is like darker, the ending is obviously bleak in this film, but the script I think is a sort of dark comedy from the off. Like, when Andrea arrived in this like shape of Colleen, who she is in the film, it was very different to what I was expecting. And I think a surprise for Paul as well a bit. She's much more like troubled and sensitive and nuanced and mature and also naive, like wrapped up in this person. Whereas in the script, I think she was sort of more, I don't know, a little bit more edgy and funny. So a lot of it was just sort of recalibrating to what they were doing. And yeah, I mean, we just discussed the scene each day, like scene by scene, really. Yeah, and one thing that we haven't talked about is Kodak would send me the images from the rashes the day before for me to look at and respond to in terms of what the telecine colour should be like. So that was really helpful for me on a day-to-day basis to be like, this is where I want it to sit. And then I could show Paul, you know, just like between takes, like, oh, what do you think that's from yesterday? Yes or no? Like that simple, but like just a few, 30 seconds between.
Yeah, like as an improvement from the ground glass image. It's like,
yeah,
this is real colour, real colour, real contrast. This is what it's actually.
And I think because he worked with me a lot, he trusted me to sort of be okay. So that was kind of it. I mean, I'm making it sound like I did nothing, but I don't know. I mean, I'm also not doing a great job for like working mums, but sometimes when you're in the thick of like babies and not sleeping and all that through the night, you just go to work and do your best.
Yeah, but also I think part of the process, certainly my experience of working with Paul is that you have to be able to pivot when an actor comes in and pivots their character. And so if you've got like a rigorous A to B to C to D to E to F plan going through the schedule, actually it's probably going to be more detrimental to have that architecture. Whereas if the actor pivots, you can pivot and like away you go on the rest of your journey.
I think also just that, Paul really did know what he wanted. So even if I didn't know, I would know before I shot the scene, I would know from him and from seeing the rehearsal. I mean, the rehearsals were like very intimate. He would do it with them without anybody else. Then I would come in. And then I think we probably wouldn't even invite like the focus puller in or anything. We would just, unless they're, if they're just sitting in chairs, like the boom operator doesn't need to see the rehearsal, and the focus puller, like, you know what I mean? It was really, really intimate in that sense, and also because they can't fit anyone in those rooms. So, yeah, it was a very like, not improvised is the wrong word, but it was a very sort of like, I don't know, like responsive day-to-day kind of film.
Great. Next question in the centre, just back there. Is there if you keep your hand up, there's an there we go.
Hi, my question is mainly about the 16mm because I really appreciate how smooth the image is, especially for the night scene. It shows really smooth and without the common grainy look we usually see in the 16mm film. Like when we shoot 16mm film in school, and sometimes it's really hard to control the dark area, the grainy of the dark area. So my question is mainly about two stuff. One is which stock you use mostly in this film, and the second one is how you lit the night interior scene, especially when they close all the lights and it's only night atmosphere. How do you lit that scene?
Yeah,
and to control the
night interior
grain?
is my like Achilles heel. I hate it. I always hate it. I hate it when I watch it from other people, and I hate it when I do it myself. I never.
Barely visible room tone.
Barely visible is my ideal.
Yeah.
But I hate it when it's overlit. I hate it when it's underlit. I just hate it. We used 250D for most of the film. What's that, 7207? And
250D.
And 500D 7219 for the night stuff. I think for the night interiors, like when when Elsie's in her bed, I think generally you overlight it and take it down, especially if you haven't got the opportunity to redo it. And I was I would look back on my Kodak WhatsApp chat today being like, oh, how was this? And some of them are like almost pitch black. And there's a message from me being like, can you send me this in log, please? Because I'm like, oh my God, I've totally ruined it. And then log is like really bright and grey and totally fine. Yeah. So I think you slightly, I think the thing I'm trying to do in night interiors is get the contrast ratio so that you can then bring it down. But if you don't have a difference in contrast, it's very hard to make it look like it's got any shape at all. So I've usually got like one light coming in from like the hallway as if she's left the light on. So there's like a little bit of shape on the back of her head and then everything else down by like, I mean, with that stock, I think definitely from interior to exterior on the day stuff, it's like 8 stops maybe. And maybe in the night interiors, it's 8. I don't know. I was kind of trusting Kodak to be my friend here. Yeah, that was, I mean, there are a couple in there where I'm like, oh yeah, not so bad. And there's a couple where I'm like, no. Yeah. And there's one, I think, which I really like, where she's asleep and it's just a wide shot of her asleep and it's like almost spotlight. I don't know what I'm using, like probably one Titan tube. And Paul is like, I hate this. It looks just like a painting. Like, it's ridiculous. And I'm like, I love it. It looks just like a painting. Yeah. And he tried to make me grade it more natural, and we just couldn't actually. I was like, sorry, I can't change it. Sorry.
That's it. But yeah, I guess it's that kind of like, if you can get some kind of room tone so that the blacks are a little bit lifted, so there's a bit of exposure.
You've got to give your negative some help, because if you underexpose, you bring it up, it's just so grainy and just don't have the information. So I think it's better to overdo it a little bit, overcook it. When we shot it in real life, Paul was like, is it going to be this bright in the film? Like, he came in and was like, is this your lighting? And I was like, yeah, because like, it's going to be really dark, I promise. Yeah. And then when he got the rushes, he was like, it's too dark. I'm like, oh, you know. Yeah. Like, I think you've got to, I think it's mostly about contrast. Like, night exteriors and night interiors, you've got to get some shape somewhere. Yeah. I think what's hard in nights is when it's too colourful. I think maybe that's why that Brenda asleep scene he didn't like it, because there's so much colour in her room and there's so much texture on the curtains and on the bedspread. And if you desaturate it too much, it just becomes black and white. But it's too colourful for like real night for your eyes. Yeah. You know? And
I guess, you want to kind of push it towards monochromaticity, but there's so many different colours in the room that you've still got like a lilac and a purple and some pinks and then...
Yeah, and on that nice Kodak stock is like juicy.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Colleen's it's easier because her room is like grey and silvers, and because she's got that weird shiny duvet, it's like
she's generally got a dog on her bed.
A dog, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm just looking at the dog. Nice lighting, but the dog's asleep with his legs in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there another question out there? There's one just there.
Thank you, Ness. I have a little question about the reason why you choose shot on 16mm film rather than digital, apart from the exposure curve you've mentioned.
It was just a creative choice, really. Like, Paul was the person who mentioned it the first time because I just assumed we would never be able to afford to do it. I kind of was surprised when he said, let's do it on 16. And he really loves it and has done it before. And it's just a taste, I think. He loves it, I loved it, we tested it against digital. You choose the look that you want for the story, and it just felt like the texture was good for Elsie, for that like period of the way her bungalow is dressed, and like you were saying, it hasn't been, updated for 20, 30, 40 years. And it looks amazing on the skin tones and just that. I don't know, it's about aging this film in lots of ways. And it just felt like good organic texture rather than like really crisp digital. And obviously you can do everything you want in digital and in post and with beautiful vintage lenses and things. And I shoot digital all the time, so I'm not dissing digital at all. But we just did a side-by-side comparison and we just preferred it. I mean, it's kind of that. It was that simple. I mean, it comes with its own problems. Like we couldn't get the insurance to do, we had to do our rushes every night for insurance purposes, but we were in Leeds, near Leeds, And so we had to get a runner to drive down to Pinewood every night to put her in the bath and back up, which is like a massive expense on our budget that we really didn't need. But that was, you know, another thing that it forced our hand. So there are lots of like good, you know, pros and cons of shooting film, but I'm really glad we did.
Yeah, so it gives it's unique texture.
I mean, it looks so different to all my other work. Like when I look at this and I look at Ted Lasso, I'm like, well, they're just completely like two sides of it.
And Bull was digitally photographed as well, right?
Bull was digital, yeah.
I think we may have time for just one more question, just there.
Following her question is like, so you shot it on 16mm, but that was it. All the rest was done. All the editing and grading was done digital.
Yeah, they scanned it. They
There's no intermediate or any of those.
No, we don't. Yeah, no budget for that.
Okay.
But yeah, so it gets scanned in 4K and then we grade it in 4K digitally, and it's projected on a DCP and everything.
Great. The new addition to the BSC Q&A series is the counter that has just drifted to 0. So that is the perfect way to end our conversation. A huge thank you to Panavision and the team for sponsoring tonight's event.
Thanks, Panavision.
To the team at the BSC. To the team at the BSC for putting together for such an incredible Q&A programme. And finally to Ness Whyte BSC for sharing her extraordinarily terrifying work on Dragonfly.
Thanks, Chris. And to Chris. Thank you.